Welcome at the third episode of Chocozone podcast, season number 2. We stay in US and we meet a special chocolate maker that at one point of his life decided to leave anything and start to make chocolates at home with his wife. Now it is a well-known company and it is a very good chocolate maker of Texas. One of his production is, like for the guest of last episode, the chocolate with CBD, and we could know more also with him about this kind of production. Welcome to Chocozone podcast. Welcome back to the episode number 3 of the second season. We are still in US, but this time we are in San Antonio, Texas, with our guest, Brian Mikiten, the owner of Casa Chocolates. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Morning, how are you? Excellent, good to see you.
Hi, Brian.
We are well. Welcome in our podcast. And normally to all our guests we ask where are you located, how long has been making chocolate, who is working with you. So tell us something to introduce you and your company.
Okay, we are Casa Chocolates. We're in San Antonio, Texas, which is right in the middle of the state. We've been in business for about 5 years, a little bit over that. I was a hobby chocolate maker prior to that. And my wife, Joan, works with me as well. I'm primarily in charge of doing production and chocolate making. She gets involved in the marketing and some of the online presence that we have.
Brian, in the bean-to-bar industry, a lot of chocolate makers, they do have a different kind of background. Okay, they are from different fields and different industry. Do you think that this kind of background helps many of you in getting a good business also in chocolate? In which way does it happen?
Sure. I'm a good example of many of the people out there. I'm an ex-tech person. I owned an engineering and consulting business. I'm also have a degree in economics. So I think having business background helps. I think having a background in engineering certainly helps, just from a control point of view, understanding what you're doing. We came into this business because we were looking for something else to do after I had sold the company, and I certainly can't sit around and do nothing. So making chocolate seemed to be a fun way to spend some time.
If you should guess, which is the percentage of part of the business where you are a good entrepreneur or a good chocolate maker? I mean, how you combine the two sides of the same coin?
I think the fun thing about chocolate making is you have to be both at the same time. So you have to be a little bit of an engineer, a little bit of an entrepreneur, and at the same time, you have to be an artist and making the chocolate and tasting. It's a very interesting balance that I've not seen in a lot of other industries.
Yeah. And you start at home, I think, and then you upgrade into a real factory. When you arrive in the evening with your wife, what do you say? you are right, or when also you decide to do it, you were not so afraid to go in a new field with something that you didn't know, something that could not well understood before. So tell me about your sensation.
Well, there were a couple things. Because I effectively retired early, I needed something to do. I was also making an incredible mess at home with chocolate. There was chocolate everywhere. There was chocolate in the kitchen, chocolate in the laundry room, and chocolate on the floor. So one of the things that we decided to do was to get a small commercial kitchen. But we did have a few customers already. So I was very fortunate in that we had some people, wholesale only, that were buying our chocolate. It allowed us to be a little bit more careful about what we were doing. But we also benefited in that we did have the capital. I understood business. I understood how to run a business from the accounting point of view and the marketing. So we could walk into something like this with much less risk than some of the people we meet who are, fresh out of college, or they're very interested in doing chocolate, but they don't have the benefit of that background or the capital to start it.
So in that extent, it may be a risky part of the business to be too passionate for your own business?
I think it's a balance, right? Just like anything else. Uh, Passion will drive you through the difficult times, developing the product, working through the issues that you have day to day. But passion will not buy you bread at the store. You have
Yeah.
to have a business background. You have to understand what it's going to cost to run the company, whether it's employees or doing it yourself, acquisition of equipment, capital. All of that it's a hand in hand in order to run a business.
Which is the most common mistake that, according to you, the people do when they start to make this business? When they decide to start with chocolate maker, they do this mistake, if you have one.
Sure. No, I think the most common thing is not understanding the cost structure, what it costs to make a bar of chocolate. Selling a bar at a farmer's market or a local store and making up the price, which is what we see a lot of young chocolate makers do, doesn't make any sense. You really do have to know what it costs to make that bar. And that's everything from rent to salaries to overhead to air conditioning to equipment costs, all of it. That's what it costs to make a bar of chocolate. So I think understanding the business side of chocolate is something that everybody can benefit from. I read about it all the time, even today.
Yeah. And back to the cocoa, which origin are you using? And how did you find it? If you find directly or with some broker? And the last question about this I want to do is if you can tell us the differences of the flavor between a couple of these.
Okay, so I'll start with the flavor. One thing we did about 6 years ago is we purchased almost 300 different bars from all over the world. So
Wow.
our job, yeah, we figured we had to figure out what we liked. I had a chocolate taste in my mind, and I couldn't really describe it, and I didn't know enough in order to make it. So I had flavor profiles I wanted to build. So what I did, we simply bought chocolate from everywhere, tasted it, decided what we liked and we didn't like. We made a log to clarify what was good and bad. And that left us with about 6 or 7 different origin areas. And right now we're using Vietnamese, Ecuadorian, Dominican Republic, Indian, which is extremely interesting, Ugandan, and Guatemala. So those are our core ones, but we found those because we tried chocolate from a lot of other regions that just wasn't to our taste. So, and then when we buy from known brokers. We have one place that we can buy directly from the farmer. But in general, we're buying from brokers who are very good about sending us samples of something new so that every harvest we can try it, test it, and make sure it's correct.
Talking about that cocoa farmer, do you think that this new industry, these chocolate makers, small chocolate makers, improve the relationship with the farmers, improve the farmers' condition because they're used to, getting a low price for their beans and just focusing on the volumes. The more I can produce, the safer I am, but they don't care about the right price point. Do you think that the bean to bar chocolate makers help them in some extent?
So I have a lot of opinions about that. I will make it brief though. I think there's a couple of different things. One is the transparency reports are critical. I want to know that if I'm buying from Uncommon or Chocolate Alchemy or from Meridian, let's say, that I know that they really are paying the farmers more. We have talked to many farmers, whether it's at shows or whether they're visiting us here in Texas, because a lot of them are in South America.
But is it true? I mean, is it true that the chocolate makers pay more than a commercial chocolate big company?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I also think we're buying better beans. So, the beans that are made for one of the big chocolate makers out there, Mars or Hershey's or any of them, they're not using our beans. They're not using fine chocolate. We support the fine chocolate industry. We really also believe that one of the things that we can do as a small chocolate maker is to do things like support microloans directly to farmers. We can support things like we'll buy a PC for a farmer so that he can get a connection to the internet and learn how to farm better and understand what it takes to cultivate the crops or to fertilize the crops. I think that we as a bean to bar maker can make more of an impact directly by doing those things while still making sure that we're buying good quality beans and that our cost in a bag of beans is partially given to the farmer himself so that he continues to grow.
But it is because the farmer doesn't want to give a fine cocoa bean to the big company, or is because of the big company doesn't want to pay for it?
No, I think it has more to do with everything we use is non-GMO. So the small farmer with a hectare of land that has the cacao is often a secondary crop to them, sometimes tertiary. So it's additional income. What we don't want is the fine chocolate, the old chocolate out there, the old trees, to be farmed down and just so that they can put in mangoes or they can put in tobacco or some other crop that's going to give them a higher yield. So the real truth is when we talk to farmers, we believe they're being paid more. We hope they're being paid more, but we also believe that as a bean to bar maker, one of our jobs is to do things like fund microloans, to fund PCs, to fund some of these other things, because I know when I send that out, it really is helping the farmer.
Yeah. From the origins you have of cocoa, which one is the more hard to work to keep down the acidity, and which one is more easy to that quite you don't need to conch it?
Okay, so the Indian that we have right now is the most interesting. It has a raisin profile, but if you don't roast it properly, if you don't post-process it properly, it can have a bite to it that overwhelms the flavor. So it's a very carefully handled bean. On the other hand, the Dominican that we have, which is Oco Caribe, is very easy to make. I always think it's interesting because I can taste 3 bars from the same beans from 3 different makers, and they all taste different. They're all very good, but it's a very easy to handle bean. And we always suggest that to people as a starter bean. If you're just getting in the industry, if you want good success early on.
Yeah, are you making a lot of bars with also different flavor? I see. And how do you decide the recipes? In which way you trust only to yourself, or you do some tests with some friends, customers, or?
I 80% trust myself because I have a flavor I want. And my wife makes fun of me all the time because there's certain flavors that we do that are extremely popular that I didn't want to make. But she will help on those. Like, I don't like coffee, but we have a coffee bar that's very, very popular. And because I don't like it, she's the one that developed it with me. But I am very picky about the way things taste. I won't make a bar because it's trendy or because other people are doing it. We really like to make what we make. And I have to enjoy the bars. I have to be sitting here. If a bar breaks or I need to test it, I want to know what it tastes like. So we're picky about that.
After the bean to bar chocolate making, okay, and the bean to bar bars and the artisanal bars, there is a new trend. Well, it's been quite a long time ago right now. That is the CBD chocolate infusion and the use of cannabis. Well, actually, the CBD. I remember at the very beginning of this new trend, I had 2 customers. They were just entering the business, or they were just to decide if entering or not the business. And they had 2 opposite beliefs. So one say, okay, I'm entering the business because it's quite a profitable one. And the other one, I still remember it because it made me think about it. And he say, I cannot think to chocolate bars that is being bought by a child, okay, and and maybe he doesn't know exactly what he's buying, what he's eating, and I'm quite afraid of it. Now that some years has passed, so it's more consistent, it's more known. There is regulations. What do you think are the positive effect about the CBD, a CBD chocolate bar, or a CBD used as an ingredient, as a flavor of a chocolate bar?
All right, so CBD is a complex subject, obviously. In Texas, it's not, CBD is legal, marijuana is not. We ship to all 50 states, but our chocolate has to have less than 0.3% THC. So when we also do some white label chocolate for other people, so we approach it a little bit differently. One is that we believe that a fine chocolate with CBD is an additive that's a bonus for the customer. And generally, the customers buying it are people who, number one, know what it is. They are buying it because it helps them sleep, it helps them with backaches or headaches, or it helps them calm down a little bit. So that's our primary customer. I will tell you that when we are approached to do private label, we find that very few people understand how we make the CBD chocolate, because it can come as an oil, it can come as an isolate, it can come in many, many forms. D8 and D9, the newer trends out there, are extremely difficult to work with, because if you don't develop a process before that, you can get one bar that's got 100 milligrams and the next bar has 60. So
Wow.
we do a lot of testing, a lot of chemistry to make sure that what we do works. I think the concern about people eating it that shouldn't, we label it. We have FDA guidelines. We have inspectors that come in all the time and check our records. But we very clearly label what the chocolate is. It's got big stickers on it so that we know it's CBD versus non-CBD, but it's labeled 3 times. So we are very careful. We also educate the customer, but we have many, many wholesale customers that are buying it. They do the same thing. The stickers and the labeling really is the thing that we rely on.
So it's kind of healthier kind of chocolate bar?
It's healthier because it's bean to bar. We use the same chocolate. So we sell our bars for $8, our standard bean to bar bars. The CBD bars are 20 a piece. It's the identical chocolate, but with CBD added.
Okay. But it's healthier, the one with CBD, than the plain one? No.
It depends on what you think CBD is and how it's going to affect you. We're not doctors. We don't play one on TV. So we are careful. What we tell people is, if they're interested in it, do some research, try it. We can have discussions about how it affects your cannabinoid system. But we try to let the customer decide whether or not it works. And I will tell you that probably 20% of the customers say they don't feel anything. The other 80% are in here every Saturday buying chocolate. And a lot of our wholesale is CBD chocolate.
Yeah, and what is the difference? I don't want to enter in the secrets, but what is the main difference to work the chocolate with or without the CBD? So in the tempering or I don't know. I ask to you, where is the difference?
The big expense and time and care is taken by cleaning. We treat it like it's an allergy. So as an example, we have a completely different compota machine that simply makes CBD. That's all it does. So cross-contamination with CBD is critical. You have to be very, very careful about that and the dosing. So we have separate machines that just do CBD. When we're running CBD, we treat it like it's a nut. So everything gets cleaned. We run the CBD and everything gets cleaned afterwards as well.
Can you tell us something about this process? I mean, which are the more complex and the more complicated part of the business, of the process with the CBD?
I think developing the recipes is difficult because of the consistency. CBD in isolate form has to be dealt with. It looks like a powder. It has to be dealt with a certain way because of the way powders emulsify into the chocolates and the fats. Whereas D8 or D9 look like syrup or hard honey, and that has to be dealt with. Otherwise, you get globs of it. So we've spent quite a bit of time developing methods for treating with CBD so that we know we're giving the customer exactly what we're advertising. And again, having separate machines is really, really important.
Back to bean to bar. What do you think about the bean to bar? Do you believe the U.S. company Chocolate Crafter has given to all the world a way to make chocolate from the cocoa beans. You started something like 10 years, and then now everybody everywhere are copying the system. So they are doing like the Americans make chocolate. So the market grew a lot, and so and so. Do you think that the difference between bean to bar and commercial chocolate, that it is also bean to bar, but it is something really different, will go on, or the market has found the level, and now who is in there is, and but there is no market for other people?
I think so. There's a couple issues here. One is that COVID dramatically affected the market. I think that what we saw from our point of view, we're talking to a lot of people, what we see is that a lot of the, what I'll call a small bean to bar maker, somebody that was doing it on the weekends or doing trade shows, I think a lot of those people disappeared, mostly because a lack of capital. They were just in business enough to make a little bit of money. But what we saw is that some of the mid-sized makers shut their doors for a while. We know of 3 that simply closed and went and got other jobs, and they're just now barely reopening. On the other hand, the small chocolate maker, the hobbyist homemaker, I think we're seeing many, many more of those. We get probably 2 to 3 emails a week from people asking technical questions, almost always about what machine should I buy, or I can't temper, what am I doing wrong? But we see a lot of that, and I'm happy to help them because that's how we got where we are, right? We had to read all the chocolate alchemy information. We had to read all the books, the industrial chocolate making guides. We read all of that. We went to all the shows. And so I'm seeing more of that, the small makers. And if there's 100 small makers, maybe we'll get 1 or 2 bigger makers come out of that. So I think we had a dip, and I think that dip is coming back, and hopefully we'll see more people. I love to see more people in this field because our customers all across the world now understand why you want to buy a better bean, and the more beans that are bought, the better it is for the farmer.
Yeah, I think that the point here is that we normally consider the bean to bar industry as something separating from the big, huge, because it's the numbers, the volume is incredible of chocolate in the world. So when you do consider the bean to bar as something separating, you think, well, maybe there are too many artisans, so you fulfill the market. But it is not true, because the real market is the chocolate market. If every single consumer in the world would consider the chocolate from a bean to bar chocolate maker as the only food that deserve their own money, probably the only limit is the whole yearly production of chocolate in general, not thinking about commercial or bean to bar chocolate.
A bean to bar chocolate that's made well, right, executed well, they will not go back to regular chocolate. We see that with all of our customers, and we have thousands of customers that have simply come back because they will not. And even if they're making chocolate chip cookies or they're making a cake, they come buy the chocolate. Now, San Antonio is a large city, but we are finding that we're seeing people across the U.S. buy it, and I'm seeing a lot of questions from people all over the world come across, whether it's Facebook or text or whatever it is. We're seeing a lot of people ask questions about how to use their equipment because they know we have certain equipment here, and I hope that continues. I hope that there are more and more people who, even in small towns, can buy a small machine, make it work, and then produce.
Do you think this aspect of the bean to bar industry has changed since the beginning? I mean, I remember 2010, 2011, this was very typical. So the chocolate maker just shared their experience and knowledge with all the others, because what they knew, what they shared with the others, they were sure that the others would have shared the same thing or different things, so they could learn. Do you think after so many years it's still the same right now, or there are some sort of chocolate makers that change their mind and they don't want to share anymore like before?
I hope not. The reason that I'm in this industry, my prior industry was all secrets. You did not discuss anything with your competition. You simply didn't say anything. In this industry, there's an openness. And I think that we all have to realize that what we make and how we make it is our inside secret. But I regularly do tours of our small facility with other chocolate makers. We did 2 last week. I show them everything. Now, I don't tell them how I roast, and I may not tell them how we make CBD, but I certainly am more than happy to teach people how to temper, how to use silk, how to use, why our machines work, why we chose what we chose. I think that's important. It's like giving somebody a guitar, right? We can hand everybody the guitars and we're all going to play something different. We're going to sound different. That's what bean to bar chocolate making is. And sharing our experience and our knowledge is absolutely important.
Beautiful, this thing about the guitar. Well, yeah, that's true.
You mentioned before about the pandemic. Okay, everybody knows, everybody lived his own, experience, and it's been crazy. You talk about what happened because of the pandemic. Do you see any kind of, how will be the future after this experience that nobody expected, something that it seems a movie, a film? How do you see the bean to bar market after the pandemic in the future? I mean, how did it affect, except from the business that's closed? I mean, something positive.
I always have many answers for these questions. So on one side, our personal experience was that we were almost all wholesale. We were in about 60 different stores, and we were just producing wholesale. We opened our first retail store in January, the month before COVID.
Yeah.
So we saw what happened. Now we're seeing our wholesale orders have gotten much larger in the last 6 months. With more people, and our retail has gone much, much higher because people are back out again. We're also talking to small chocolate makers who are venturing back out into where everybody starts, which is the farmer's market and things like that. So I think it probably put us all back 2 years, right? But I think that we're probably going to see a regrowth, especially because so many small chocolate makers were working at home. And they were learning their craft. Now they're going to either decide to continue and become commercial, or they're not. But I don't know. I've always believed that the bean to bar market is made up of a pyramid. So at the bottom of the pyramid, you have all of us who started with the tiny little melangers and roasting beans in your oven, and that's the bulk of it. Then the next step up is probably people like us and a few others that are making a lot of bars, wholesale retail. And then at the top of the pyramid is going to be people like Dandelion or Chow or some other people who are much larger, have big melting tanks, all that. But at the very, very peak is probably the chocolate, the industrial people. And I don't think they're the same business. I don't think they're not our competition. They don't represent our market. And so I don't know that COVID affected them in the same way that it affected all of us. But I think we're recovering in a different way. Our base is growing larger, which means over time, we're going to have more people. We're never going to compete, nor do we want to, with the dollar, Hershey bar. That's not anything we care about. But on the other hand, I think you're going to see more and more people, especially when the fear of COVID starts disappearing.
Do you feel that the average consumer, as we are, start thinking that after this painful period of our lives, we deserve more than a basic food or a cheap food? Do you think that we now are I have enough of what happened, and I want to spend more money on my quality, or the quality of my life, and this includes also commercial chocolate versus bean to bar chocolate?
Absolutely. I think that there's a self-reward process that occurs, right? Pre-COVID, your self-reward may have been buying yourself a nice $100 bottle of wine. Well, because the economy changed, now we're buying ourselves $8 and $20 chocolate bars. And we see a lot of that. We see a lot of the self-reward mechanism in place and experimenting with nice things. We have never believed that we were in the market for the Hershey bar. That was never, it didn't matter, right? We were out there to make a really fine quality chocolate bar that when people ate it, they didn't question the price. They came back and bought more. My favorite thing that happens in the shop in our retail store is when somebody buys one bar after they sample, they start eating it in front of me, and during our conversation, they eat the whole bar, and they have to buy another one. So that's, I think we're seeing more of that, where people, they behave like they want to reward themselves. They're giving themselves a gift and saying, I deserve this. And I think that happens whether it's, all fine quality foods. We self-reward them.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian, are you selling also through e-commerce or on the web? Which way are you? You?
Yeah, we have a website that has all of our bars on it. It was interesting because when we introduced CBD, most of the e-commerce sites wouldn't let us go on. So fortunately, we found a very large one. We did all of our rules and certifications and all that, and we're now online all the time. So we've been doing that for.
Yeah, we have quite finished our meeting, and the question we do to anybody that is our guest is, how do you see your company in the next 10 years? What is the next step you see for your company?
I think the main thing is to keep enjoying doing what we're doing. I've had companies with up to 300 employees, and at some point it's not fun. So I think the promise we made to each other was that we were going to keep doing something we enjoy. I'd like to get larger retail space. We obviously want more wholesale clients. They're fun to deal with. But we're very picky about who we sell to from the wholesale side. Of course, as an engineer, I want more machines. I want bigger machines, and I want fancier machines. But in general, I think, what we want to make sure that we keep making good quality chocolate, that people enjoy what we do. Having a little bit larger space is certainly in our future. But we want to keep it fun. That really is the main goal. If this stops being fun, then we've.
How can you keep it if you are going to upgrade? I mean, sooner or later, if business goes in a certain way, you have to upgrade. How can you be sure to keep, that passion and that attention and that focus on the product if you have to upgrade?
Dangerous question.
This is going to sound like a terrible answer to that, but because I've owned other businesses, I don't have to worry about growing this one to a size that's unreasonable. Okay. And I don't know how to explain that, but I'm not 22 years old and trying to make my life's living and retire from this business. I am very fortunate in that I can make a very high quality product. I have a valve I can control, right? And the valve is my heart and my interest. And if we decide that we can produce about 1,000 bars a day out of this facility, I can automatically control how much I make by not buying more machines or by not saying yes to clients. We had somebody come in that wanted a very, very, very large commitment. And I said no, because I knew that what was going to happen is I would have to sacrifice the quality, my life, my time in order to do that. And it wouldn't have been fair to the goals here. And the goals are to make fine quality chocolate. And if I have a run that I don't like, or it doesn't look right, or whatever it is, I can say no. And I think that's our rule that we're following, is the chocolate comes first, second, and third.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So you succeeded in learning how to say no. That's a good point.
Yes. In my prior business as a contractor, we never said no. We said yes to everything. Yeah, it always worked out. Yeah. So yeah, it's and again, we're very fortunate. I think if you talk to a lot of the larger chocolate makers, many of us have prior careers that have allowed us to do this in a way that the business doesn't run us. We run the business.
Exactly. Okay, Brian, we thank you a lot for your time, for your experiences, and we will see soon when we could try to take the airplane, maybe soon.
Yeah, we hope
Yeah.
we hope so to shake our hands. I mean, now you cannot even touch each other.
I know. It's getting better though, and we will see each other.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank
Yeah,
you
I
very
think.
much, Brian.
Thank you,
Very good.
Brian.
Thank you. I enjoed it.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.
See you.
Bye bye.